So in yesterday's Summoners War Reloaded livestream event, they did tell us that Reloaded is going to be split up into two different sections. One is coming at the end of June in a couple days, and the other one is coming at the end of August. We got the information for the Reloaded part that's coming in a few days, but we did not get all the information for August's update. They did tell us that we're getting a Dimension Hole update, and they also told us that the new Second Awakened monsters are going to be the Frankenstein and the Living Armor. So I thought today we would theorycraft what we think some of these skills might turn into. We're here on the Living Armor page. Copper, of course, has been a super popular unit for as long as I can remember, ever since he first got introduced to the game. This one, Nickel, the Water Living Armor, is also pretty popular in, a lot of you may not realize that, in Labyrinth. If you're a hardcore Labyrinth player, you already know this, but I know a lot of people don't really care too much about Labyrinth. These things are going to be so cool after the Second Awakened. I can only imagine. In my head, I'm imagining we had these Living Armor style units. I don't remember what we called them, but we had these Living Armor style units in a game that I was working on, and they were literally on fire. Like, it was suits of armor, kind of like this, but they were like a fire elemental unit underneath the suit of armor, and it was really, really cool. I'm hoping, I mean, in my mind, that's what it is. But anyway, we'll see in a couple months what they actually are. Zinc was very popular. He's still a good unit. He's a very popular unit for TOA, and also he can be used in Steel Fortress because he's got these block beneficial effects here. This one, kind of a dud. This one, kind of dud. I have both of these built in 6-star, and we played around with them in videos. Kind of not that great. But here's my thoughts for the... Usually they stay in line for the most part with what the units are already. They just try to make them better versions of... Well, obviously that's Second Awakens. That's how... It's the same thing they do with the First Awakenings. So it shouldn't change a crazy amount. They should just become better versions of what they already are. So my thoughts for Iron is skill 1 higher activation rate. He actually has 2 debuffs, but it's a low initial activation rate. It goes up, which is nice, but I think they'll just make this 100% total after the... Well, the scalps kind of get fused into the unit after that. So I think they'll make this 100%. Skill 2, I think they'll probably have, because this is a single target attack, I think they might have maybe a brand alongside this. And then the skill 3, this is the passive, max HP increased proportion to your defense that you enter battle with. I think either they will make this a higher amount, or maybe other stats increased as well, like speed, or attack, or either speed or attack, or significantly higher HP. Of course, he's just going to be a better version of this, what he already has. These units, you may think that attack really doesn't matter too much, but even though they do damage according to their defense, attack is still calculated as part of the calculations for this. So, like, for example, if you put extra attack power on Copper, he's still going to do more damage. Even though it's primarily defense, you still want to also put attack power on this. It's kind of confusing which ones. I use Swar Farm to figure out what stats are calculated in the final damage for these things. So sometimes the wording is kind of confusing on which units benefit from certain stats more or less. So that's why I do that. They seem to have a pretty good grasp over there of what everything is calculated into the attacks. But I think this is either going to be other stats increased, but it's just going to be nice to have, for these Living Armors, considering their defense-based units, it's just going to be nice to have more HP on them, which is going to make them more viable, because additional damage is very strong right now, ever since it first came out. Or maybe, I guess, a couple months after it first came out, when people are like, oh, by the way, this kind of ignores defense, and it's great for multi-hitters. And then that's when it got super strong. So I just think that it's going to be additional stats and increased chances to land debuffs, and an extra, some kind of, probably an extra brand, or I shouldn't say probably, possibly. That's my thoughts for that. For this one, the Water Living Armor, skill 1, higher activation rate. Skill 2, I think this is possibly going to be 100% defense break. I think this is going to be kind of the same situation with Rebecca's skill 2, where it was not 100% unless they had, I think it was 100% if they had beneficial effects on them before she was Second Awakened. And then if they did not have beneficial effects, it was a 50% chance. And then after she was Second Awakened, it is just a 100% chance after the... I think that's what it is. We can go take a look at Rebecca right now, actually. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And now it's going to take me forever to find this unit again. All right. So I think that that's going to be the case with this, just 100% chance, not anything crazy. I mean, I could be wrong. This is just theory crafting. This is just trying to make educated guesses based on what they've done previously. And then for this Glacier Armor passive, so this is good against one of the bosses in Labyrinth. Gains immunity against continuous damage, decreases the attacker's attack speed for 2 turns with 50% chance when attacked. I think this might either give him an additional thing that he's immune to or an additional debuff when he is attacked, like, for example, maybe a stun or an increased cooldown of the opponent. That would make him very meta, but I'm not sure, like very meta for things other than the one Labyrinth stage, but I'm not sure. Or wait a second, the real question is, now that we have the buffed dragon, right? The buffed dragon's Dragon's B12, does he become, because you could already use him in there, it's just not a very fast, efficient team. He's technically usable. You can use a multiple water living armor team. This was actually a YouTube video a while ago. Someone built a full team of living armors, and I think they used the water battle mammoth, and they were doing dragons with that as kind of a joke thing. But I think this could be a pretty useful unit in the new Dragon's B12. So just keep that in mind, that this might actually be very, very impactful, and this might be one of those units that you just, like, everyone has built after the Second Awakening. Since the Dragon's B12 buff and the Second Awakening of the Water Living Armor go hand in hand. And I think that Comtuos might have had that intentionally designed for him to be good in Dragon's B12. So we'll see. Copper, I think, is going to get a very minimal buff. I think this is just going as skill 1, increased chance of landing the debuffs. Skill 2, same thing. And then this, I think there's just going to be no condition, because right now there's just a condition of ignores target's defense if it's lower than 50% of your defense. I think this is just going to be removed. And then he's going to have higher base stats, so he's just going to be better anyway. Part of the beauty of Second Awakenings is just these higher base stats make the units more viable. So sometimes it's not even so much about the skills, because the skills are already pretty decent sometimes, and just the higher base stats. This one I think might actually wind up still being a dud after Second Awakening. I hate to say that, but I was thinking of the different changes that they could do for him. Skill 1, same, higher chance of landing the debuffs. Skill 2 is the same as I mentioned before, maybe an extra brand on here, because it's already, after it's skilled up, it's already 100% chance. Maybe put a brand on there, possibly. And then the skill 3, I feel that the most logical thing for this skill 3 to get is Destroy HP. And then I wonder, is he going to be a useful thing? You could use him in Siege with Destroy HP, Disturb HP Recovery, and then Destroy HP, and then he's going to be a tanky bruiser kind of unit. So it could be a unit that you could use if you want. I think he still might not be meta. I mean, again, we're just theory crafting. We're just trying to figure out and deduce what it could possibly be and what our thoughts are based on what they've done before. But I don't think that he's going to be anything crazy after the buff. I kind of think that Zinc might get a Linda treatment, the Light Mystic Witch, where he gets a crazy amount of debuffs on skill 3. Right, because the Light Mystic Witch, let's take a look at her over here. We have Comets to attack. This one got she was not that good before the 2A. After the 2A, really the biggest issue with Linda here is that she doesn't do as much damage as we need her to. That's kind of the bummer. That's kind of the drawback. But she does decrease attack power, decrease attack speed, increase chance of glancing a hit, beneficial effects block, and target defeated cannot be revived during battle. There's a lot of stuff on that skill 3. So I think that the Zinc, where is he? I should probably scroll down some more. I think that Zinc, wherever he is going to possibly have just some more debuffs over here, which he already does quite a lot of debuffs. I think that just the Second Awakening on him, people are going to start using him more, and then remember that he was already a pretty decent unit, that they could have been using him more the entire time. For these defense-based units, I think the biggest thing is we'll see how much their HP increases, because anything that's built with defense, the problem with that is susceptible to additional damage and just killed through that. Or Lucian, or just anything that ignores defense, but yeah. That's kind of always been the issue. However, we do see things that are defense-based still perform well. Like, for example, Abellio, Tyrannus, I know increased cooldowns, like Oliver makes Tyrannus basically useless. Among other things, there's also other things that have increased cooldowns, but mostly Oliver makes Tyrannus completely almost nowhere in RTA. But Feng Yan you see every so often in RTA, and then you also see the Water Holly Berry, Manon, in RTA, and those units are defense based as well, and they perform fairly well. So we could we'll see how much HP increases when they're second awakened, and that should make them more viable already. Next, we have the Frankensteins. I'm sure some of these need no introduction, namely Bulldozer, also Tractor for some of you that do Guild Siege. These things, you may even have multiple of these units built. Bulldozer, of course, has the Ignore Defense on skill 3. If you're new and you don't even have these built, I would say they're plenty fine to even start building now. They're going to be useful for you even before the Second Awakenings if you are a new player. But he's got the double hit Ignore Defense here. The drawback is he does not do as much damage as Copper. Also, he gets stunned after this as well. I think that for the Second Awakening, they possibly might, even though the stun is not really a big issue because a lot of people use him with Olivia or Rakuni or Amelia, and therefore the stun is not really, you don't even really feel the stun after this. I think they might just, number one, take the stun off completely, and he's going to do more damage regardless because his stats are going to be increased. His defense is going to be increased after the Second Awakening because all their stats, not all their stats, but attack power, defense, and HP get increased when there's a Second Awakening. So he's going to just do more damage regardless. I don't think he's going to get changed too much. I could see this being a higher % chance to stun. And then I think this one possibly, well, that's my prediction for the skill 1 higher stun. And then skill 2, I could either see this being an absorb attack bar, because this is a attack all enemies, decrease the attack bar of each enemy by 30%. I could see this being an absorb. That would make him, that just seems like the most logical thing. Maybe a small chance to stun, maybe a small chance to speed break, reduce enemies' attack speed. I could see this being one of those, but he's already a useful unit, so I can't see them doing anything crazy with this. But either way, he's going to have more HP and more defense, so even more HP and defense and attack. If you have additional damage on him, this is the multi-hits, and it's going to do more damage. Ignore defense. Additional damage is ignore defense, so it's going to do more damage on skill 1 as well. So he's just going to be a great unit after the Second Awakening. Even if he doesn't get changed at all, he's still going to be a great unit. Same thing with Tractor. He's already good. He's immune to defense breaks. He increases his attack bar by 30% when he gets hit by a critical hit from the enemy. I think they might just take this crit hit off and keep the immune against defense decreasing effects. And I could see this being the biggest thing for Tractor. What else? I put something else. Oh, possibly. Oh, no. Skill 3, immune, maybe immune to CC. I don't know if he's going to be immune to CC and defense breaks, but I think that maybe he's going to be immune to something else as well. But either way, just with the increase of the stats, these things are going to be much more useful. So he's got the same first skill. I think it's just going to have an increased chance to stun. Second skill, we saw with the Fire Vagabond. I'm using some similar units to kind of theory craft what I think these might be. So this is kind of similar to the Fire Vagabond. Fire Vagabond provokes, and then he also does a defense buff and immunity for him. And I think this might get a similar treatment, is a 100% chance to provoke after he's Second Awakened, and also possibly a defense buff or immune, invincibility, or counterattack. Counterattack wouldn't be bad, but that's my thoughts on these. For Crane, he has the same first skill as everything else, and then the same second skill as the water one. He's going to get the same treatment, I would imagine, as possibly a immunity or a defense buff or a counterattack with this. And then for this one, what did I say? Oh, I feel like he might get a self-cleanse. I don't know that Crane is going to be super great, because I've tried all of these units. I have them at least on one account or another. I have all of these different things. 6-starred, I have most units in the game 6-starred on at least one account. So I do have this. We did videos on him. We tested him out. He's not anything crazy. We've used him. We've kind of won some with him, but not a unit that I would use all the time. I think that he might get something like Chow, though, is cleansing debuffs when he gets a turn. That's my thoughts, and I don't know that he's going to be super meta even after the 2A. I hate to say that, but some things just don't get used too much after the Second Awakenings. For example, this is my main. I actually do have this ready to get Second Awakened, but I was going to wait for doing it on video to do it. This is not something that's used all the time, even though she got Second Awakened, and she does have some interesting skills. It's just not enough. If they tweaked it and made it more useful, then you would see it being used more. This is the same thing. He got Second Awakened. People still don't use him. Where are we with the Frankensteins? Oh, now I have to find... This is the longest thing, is I have to find all these units. So I think that he still might be one of those units that just gets Second Awakened and people still don't use him. That's kind of what I feel about him, but maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he gets something really, really cool. Same first and second skill as the Bulldozer. So I would assume that it's, again, extra debuffs, maybe attack, age, absorb, maybe stun, maybe slow, something like that. This have an increased chance of stunning. And then this one, attack the enemy 4 times, deal damage proportionate to your defense. 2 additional attacks are added if the enemy's max HP is lower than yours and if the target is suffering a harmful effect. I think that this is going to be removed. This condition of 2 additional attacks added if the enemy's max HP. I think it's just going to be like 6 attacks and maybe a very low chance to defense break. I think that this might... I'm just getting a feeling that I think this might be similar to... Where is she? It's always the Batman reference. Something like this. This is kind of what I'm feeling like this might turn into. Maybe I'm absolutely crazy for thinking that. I'm probably absolutely crazy, as usual. But I kind of feel like this pound is going to turn into something like the Sophia. And then we have the Crawler. If you guys haven't seen, this thing can do crazy, ridiculous amounts of damage if you set it up, and it takes so long. It's such a ridiculous scenario to set this up, but it does like potentially like 1 million damage or some kind of crazy amount. If you haven't seen it, go look at a YouTuber named Mards, M-A-R-D-S. And he's spent all the time and energy setting this thing up to do a whole bunch of damage. So if you haven't already seen that, go check that out. Mards, M-A-R-D-S. He's a European Summoners War YouTuber and streamer. And he's done crazy crawler videos where he's taken the time to actually make this thing do ridiculous amounts of damage. Skill 1 and 2, same as the wind and water ones. So I think it's just going to be that extra defense buff or immunity or invincibility or revenge or whatever. Skill 3, I think potentially this is a very risky thing to change. Damage increase according to the number of attacks you've received. I think if they remove the damage increase will reset when you attack an enemy, that could be ridiculous. It's such a simple thing, is just removing one condition, like just removing the damage reset and just having him continue to stay stacked the entire match, which just means the longer the match goes, if it's like bruisers versus bruisers, if you're up against some super tanky unit and you're like 30 turns in, he's going to do some crazy damage. I think that might be too OP though. Like, not resetting the damage counter could potentially be ridiculous. It might be just he stacks slower, could be the way that they deal with that, but that could potentially be a very OP thing that I'm suggesting. So keep that in mind. If he starts doing like 200,000 damage to all enemies, it's like, okay, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too much. But that's just my thoughts on the easiest, most straightforward way to buff some of these things. Let me know what you think. I'm using some, like I mentioned before, I'm using some things from other units and how they've approached some of these other units' Second Awakenings to kind of gauge what I think would be the situation for these Second Awakens for these. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you would like to see for these Frankensteins and Living Armors, and we will see when they actually get released in the end of August. It should be pretty fun, and some of these units are already good regardless, so they're just going to be used all the time after the Second Awakenings because they're going to have better stats. So anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you as always in the next one.